We got some nice stumps right up here for some close-up viewing. The trees are fenced off for protection, but there's a lot of stumps all around. There's some excellent grain action. And then if you come to the back on this side,
wow,
you'll see some excellent wood grain preservation. And there's some nice agate formation on that side there.
holy moly. And so this is the grain, this is the grain, oh yes, you could see the,
Yeah, preservation doesn't get a whole lot better than that.
wow.
Count the rings in the tree.
And here is the, you can see the rings clearly here, look at
You can
this.
even tell a wet year from a dry year 3.4 million years ago.
How, from where, tell us,
Well,
show us.
the thick rain meant a wet year, and a very thin grain meant a dry winter.
Oh.
And so you can tell that right up to today.
Wow.
This one here was probably over 200 feet when it was, you know.
So this is called the Queen.
This is the Queen. This is the oldest one that's been discovered so far. It's over 1,800 years old. The ring counts at one of the cross sections at the end. I say the oldest one that's been found so far because there could still be more buried in this region. In fact, we know there is, just further down. These are the trees that just made their way to the surface through erosion and convergence, which is the uplifting of the earth over the millions of years.
Well, here's a better view. They have a viewing platform here for you. Look how wide that sucker is. Wow.
Yeah, you can see where this live oak tree here kind of grew through one of the fractures in the trees. A lot of the trees have fractures in them, very evenly distributed too. That was due to earth movement after they were buried and petrified. They were buried for over 3 million years, well over 3 million years. And we're an earthquake country, so the shifting of tectonic plates and just that slow convergence of the earth is what's caused these fractures in some of the trees. And apparently an acorn fell between one of the fractures here, and the tree took root and
the
grew
tree
right through it.
And there it is.
Most of the excavations here were done like 1910 and 1919. This one here was a more recent dug in the 1990s. There's still water accumulation in the back from the winter rains.
Wow.
They have to pump that out in the spring. But all the rest were dug more 1910 to 1919 era. Okay, now this next tree, called the tunnel tree or the monarch, is considered by many paleontologists and geologists one of the best preserved specimens they've ever seen.
Wow.
You notice this was actually dug out of the hillside with a hand drill back in 1919.
1919 is when they dug this out, huh?
Uh-huh. And look at the detail.
Wow.
The knots, the grain, you can see where the limbs were. Apparently the limbs didn't survive the heat of that volcanic pyroclastic flow. But the trunks, because of the kind of a fire-resistant trunk on the redwood, protect them from the heat of the ash. That's why they survive the ash flow.
Wow. And look at this tunnel
And
they
it goes
dug.
all the way to the root ball, far into the cave there.
Wow.
Hello, this is called the Robert Louis Stevenson tree because in 1880, Robert Louis Stevenson lived nearby on Mount St. Helena, which is where the volcano was millions of years ago around here. And when he lived there, he traveled around with his new bride and his guide, traveling about this area, and one of his stops was the Petrified Forest. Remember, it was found in 1871, so it was newly discovered, and he was one of our early visitors here. And he mentioned it in his book called Silverado Squatters, which was a journal of his travels about the area. So he talked to Petrified Charlie and they got along, and Stevenson mentioned him and his visit here. So ergo, this exhibit is named after him. So that sparkle you see on some of the trees in this forest here is a type of quartz called Drusy Quartz. How that forms is, remember I told you minerals seep in and replace every cell of the tree. It's a slow seepage process. Now after every cell of this tree had been replaced by minerals, in some cases minerals still managed to seep into the trees. They had no cells or fibers to replace, so they just kind of crystallized where they stood. That's how that sparkly Drusy quartz forms.
Could you tell us what kind of tree this is here?
Well, that's called the Manzanita Tree, which grows in California and southern Oregon. It's called Manzanita. Manzanita is Spanish for tiny apple. Manza apple, nita tiny. Because in the spring and early summer they have these little green berries on them that look like tiny apples. So that's how Manzanita got its name. It's very hard wood, very pretty wood, but mostly used for artistic sort of things, wood carvings and legs of tables and that sort of thing.
And look at this, what this part of the trail looks like. We're heading on a steep incline.
Heading back to the rock shop for fossils and minerals and gemstones. If you're into that sort of thing, this is the shop for you.
All right.
Look at the very end of the trail.
And look at this. Wow.
Live oaks are called live oaks, meaning they're green year-round. They're not deciduous like a lot of your oaks.
Okay.
So here we are in the winter, even though it's a beautiful day, it's winter and it's all full green.
What a tree. Yeah, it's full of the moss, huh? Is that moss? Would you call that moss?
It's all moss.
Moss, wow.
There's several types of live oaks, but the predominant one in this region is the coast live oak.